Sorry.
You good? All right, good morning and welcome to the first and only forum of the 2022 student body election between the candidates for president and vice president. My name is Colin McNamara, and I am the Chief Justice of the student body and the head of the elections committee for SGA. I will be moderating this forum. The rules for the forum are simple. Each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, beginning with the presidential candidates, starting with Julia and moving to Kyle, and then Mason, and then Allie. After that, we will move into the Q&A portion where I will read some questions that I have written as well as some submitted by the audience. Each team will have 2 minutes to answer the question. Following the Q&A portion, we will move into closing statements, which will be conducted the same way as the opening statements. So with that, we're going to move into the first opening statement. So Julia, take it away.
Hello, I am Julia DeAngelis. I am a second-year student here and a biology major, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Is Kyle Beyerdorf. I am a second-year student here studying political science and history. Pronouns he, him, his. So for my opening statement, I would just like to emphasize, and I'll talk about it throughout some questions, that I am running for SGA presidency to bring the human first aspect back into SGA. A lot of students see us as a political organization and a tier above them. However, we're all students, and humans first and SGA should come last. So that is primarily why I'm running.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mason Garrigan, and I am Julia DeAngelis' vice presidential candidate. My pronouns are anything. I go by she and her mainly, but also they and them. I am a media studies major with a Spanish minor, and the point of our kind of candidacy is bringing forward and getting back to the basics of SGA. We really want to rekindle that relationship and personal relationships more so with the students and get back to having those intentional conversations, and we will be doing that through certain events that we want to work on hosting, which we will talk about during the course of this forum. Thank you so much for being here.
My name's Allie, Waite, and I am running as Kyle's vice president. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a junior this year at UWSP, and I'm a psychology major with minors in behavioral neuroscience and biology. And I'm excited for the opportunity to speak to you all today.
Awesome, thank you all. So the first question that I have is, the COVID-19 pandemic has given everyone an opportunity to create a new normal. This gives SGA a chance to create a vision for itself. What is your vision for SGA and the entire campus? So with this, we will start off with Kyle.
So like I said in my opening statement, I believe human should always come first. So everything SGA does under Allie and I's administration, we would ask everyone, how does this benefit students? And we would ask that for everything we do, whether it's in the SGA office, General Assembly, just making sure we're living by who we are there to represent. So we have 4 goals on how we want to do that, including open forums, rant boxes, small group discussions, and special events, which we can get into later.
All right, Julia Mason.
So we are looking to get back to the students and kind of figuring out how we can communicate with the students more. The pandemic has shown us areas where we need to improve, and one thing that really sticks out to us is the way that we communicate with students.
Yeah, and going off of that, with the pandemic, we've noticed that a lot of people have gone through a lot of adaptability and kind of changed their way of living as a whole. I know Julia and I came up during our first year being solely in the pandemic, and that was incredibly difficult, but we also had the incredible privilege of seeing how the students reacted to it, which is actually something that made me appreciate SGA the way it is, and something I want to continue on the rise as we continue to move forward at any position within the Student Government Association.
Perfect. A priority of the current president has been to create a statewide student governance group. So that way we can collectively, as a UW system student government, lobby the legislature on different priorities. So the question is simple. What are your views on the creation of a statewide student governance group? And this will start with Julianne Mason.
So I think that this group is something that we really need here within the UW system. Each university has their own voice and their own ability to speak for the things they need, but there's so much more power behind all the universities coming together and speaking. As we've seen, especially this last couple of years with the pandemic, all the universities have very similar concerns and issues that we need to tackle, and being able to go to the system as a whole is a lot more powerful than each individual institution.
And on the more technical side, we can learn so much from other universities. I personally have been involved in off-campus activities that relate to me having to communicate with other UW schools within our Northwestern region. And with that, I have learned multiple things that are incredible, including inclusivity and diversity training that I've learned from the more diverse universities within our system. And bringing that to SGA and bringing that to any area of the UW system is something that I value immensely, because as much as we wish we knew everything, UW-Stevens Point is only one school in the vast majority of the UW system, but we can bring ourselves up to knowing almost everything, if not more.
All right, Kyle and Allie.
Yeah, I think a shared statewide government.
Talk.
I think it's a great idea. I think SGA, or the student governments at the individual universities, are powerful and effective at doing campus and community-wide change. However, the shared governance would allow us to make statewide change, which I think is really important and a great opportunity for the students as well. And as you guys mentioned, it's always a great learning opportunity to see where these other universities are, maybe what they're struggling with and where they're having their successes. And then we can help each other and just make every student government better.
Yeah. Also, as a student, I know tuition is oftentimes like a common stressor for all of us. We don't want tuition to necessarily increase if it doesn't have to, and I know the statewide governance group contributed to our tuition freeze that has recently ended. So reinstating that group back to benefit students, if that's the route they choose to go, would help a lot of students, including myself and Allie. So I've had discussions with President Shader in the past about next year empowering him to continue with those efforts, because I feel like that is definitely a necessary thing for the UW system.
All right, perfect. So this next question, how have you shown your dedication to the students in the past, and how will you continue that dedication to the students? So this will start with Kyle and Allie.
I think I've shown my dedication to the students through SGA. This will be my second year in SGA, and I've held different positions at different levels, which I think helped me understand the students more and some of where their struggles are.
So my first year, it was a very hands-on approach helping students. My first semester was serving as Steiner Hall's leadership team president before I was a mid-year emergency hire in the suites as an RA. There I was able to have a direct influence on student life. However, the following year, I became RHA, Residence Hall Association president, where I could have a broader scope in the residential life setting. So right after this meeting, I meet with our Vice Chancellor, Al Thompson, to possibly rename the suites to an indigenous woman. So I'm very focused on inclusivity efforts in the RHA setting. So RHA offers the ability to help students on a broader scale rather than a specific leadership team or being an RA.
On the opposing side, although not directly, I have been involved on campus as much as possible, and I feel like my area of expertise is more that personal connection with students. I understand, obviously, what it's like to be a student and go through the hardships that all of us have endured over the last year, and I want to work on creating that more personal space with the students, because I understand that that is where we are, and that is who we are, and this campus wouldn't be what it is without the students themselves. There may not be all the titles in the world and things like that to kind of up any kind of ante, but I am passionate about this community, and I know that everyone on campus is someone that deserves the chance to have someone to represent them who understands where they're coming from and has lived in their shoes at least once, and I've done it twice a year. So that is my kind of idea of my experience on a more personal level with the students.
Like Mason had said, it's about the students and it's about meeting them where they're at. So going to things that they enjoy, their student orgs and things like that. SUFAC, I have sat on SUFAC in my time in student government, and I really enjoyed that experience because it allowed me to see all these students come into one place and show you what they care about. You can figure out what they're passionate about and where their concerns lie, and that helps us in turn just serve them the best we can and listen to what they have to say.
Perfect. So branching off of that last question, this is a question from the audience. What is your favorite part about being a pointer? So this one will start with Julianne Mason.
Where to even begin? I remember touring campus when I was figuring out where to go to school, and the minute I stepped on this campus, it just felt like home. And I love the community and the family that I have surrounded myself with while being here. I've met some incredible people, and I am doing things that I never thought I could ever do.
Being a pointer to me was kind of a right. Both of my parents are alumni of the school, and this pointer blood and this pointer chemistry runs very, very deep within my family and my legacy. And that is something that I take incredibly seriously, because representing this school is something that you can do on a super small level, and it's something that you can do on a larger level. And I want to invite those more people to have the chance to represent their school and represent being a pointer, because it is easily one of my favorite parts of what I've done in my post-secondary education.
Being a pointer to me is all about the energy it entails. Being like all the hockey games, being a pointer pal and helping new students move in, welcome week when you attend as many events as you possibly can, especially the comedian and hypnotist. Every time you are just in a group of students wanting to connect and have that sense of energy, whether it's yelling, clapping, screaming, you just connect with students that you don't even talk to. Whether if you're at the comedian show and there's a student in the back that chips in and makes a joke, for whatever reason, I feel like connected with them because we're all students and we're sharing that sense of community.
So for me, being a pointer, it's also always been a important part of my life. My parents are also both alum of the university, so it's really important to me to give back to a university that's given so much to me and my family, and it's really important to, I've lost where I was going. Yeah, so it's just always been super important to me and my family, and I want to serve the students as they've served my family.
Perfect. So this next question is going to be specifically for the presidential candidates, and it'll be followed up by the vice presidential candidates. So I believe we're going to be starting with Kyle on this one. So what is the role of the presidency to you?
Yeah, so I think the role of the presidency is to offer the leadership to empower everyone, whether it's an SGA executive, senator, a general student, faculty, or administration. I think every student can make a beneficial contribution to the student body, and it should not be the president's job to stand in the way of that. Just giving the resources, knowledge, and everything that comes along with it to in any way benefit the students. And like I want to echo the human first. I feel like if everyone believes they need to prioritize them first, they will become a more beneficial contribution to students. You should never have to stress to achieve anything, and the president should just be there to offer leadership and remind people to take the high road, human first, and success will eventually come.
To me, the president is about being a leader who truly leads and guides. It's not being afraid to make the decision that you feel is right and remembering who you're serving, the students. and making decisions with their interest at the front of your decisions. Being able to make decisions without the where was I going with this? Sorry. Being able to make a decision and know that you know what you're doing, but also not being the sole decision maker, not being the only one who is in charge, being able to listen to others and hear what they have to say and know exactly who you're representing and how you can best serve them.
All right, so then for the vice presidential candidates, and we're going to start with Allie, just so that way we're sticking with the teams. What is the role of the vice presidency to you?
To me, the role of the vice president is obviously to serve students and ensure that their interests and their concerns are being met. But it's also about facilitating conversation, whether that's between SGA itself and students, between SGA and facility or faculty, and then facilitating conversations between students and faculty.
And in my eyes, I feel that the vice presidency is something that handles a lot of that community and communication that Allie had mentioned. And I know that we both see it as this area of equalizing between SGA itself. We have a lot of people who are involved in a lot of really, really tough conversations. And in the time that I've been there, I have noticed that a lot of our areas of checks and balances are an area that the vice president can handle and holds a lot of weight when it comes to who can talk to who and who is able to have those conversations, because it's not only our relationship with the people outside of SGA, like faculty and students, as Allie mentioned, but it is something that in order to have a strong SGA, we have to have that communication within our own association. And I feel that the vice presidency is something that holds a lot of glue when it comes to how the executive board discusses things with each other and how they interact with our senators.
Perfect. So sticking in the vein of relationships and bridge building, how will you maintain professional relationships and friendships within the organization, and how will you ensure that there is no bias? So this one will start with Julianne Mason.
I think it's very important to remember that when you're at work, and when you're not at work, you are not at work. And it's really important to remember why you're doing what you do and know that those personal relationships don't have to come between that, because you are here to serve the students. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And your friendships outside of that are independent of your work.
Exactly. Our relationship as friends is what brought us together to run together in the first place. However, we have already had many tough conversations between the two of us, and it's only the campaign. And it's something that I feel we are at a comfort level with each other, and that's something I want to invite and bring into SGA as well. It does not have to be combative. It does not have to be competitive. This is a place for us to understand what our university is and make it better, because at the end of the day, it's not Madison versus Stevens Point. It is pointers working together to create a better university as a whole.
So I think it's important to, like you guys mentioned, that understand that we are all students and we are all friends, but it's important to remember our reason why we're doing this and why we're all together in the first place, and that is to serve students, and that should be our paramount concern when making decisions and not our own personal interests or biases. And I think there's a level of professionalism in SGA that a lot of us are pretty good at understanding and putting those biases aside and remembering our reason why.
So not a lot of people realize how much a leader puts in behind the scenes. For example, as a leader, especially in my role as RHA president, you really have to take an approach to understand how everyone needs to be approached. Every human is different, whether they need like constructive criticism, positive reinforcement, a very laid back, like, I'm here for you, or you need that like harsh person that will tell them it straight. So I really took the time as a leader in RHA to understand how people want to be approached, because as a leader, that's what you need to do. So to your question about how would you distinguish friends in the workplace, just drawing on the strengths of your team and knowing that everyone is unique and can bring something new to the table. And then on a side note, just making sure at least one person's playing devil's advocate, even if it's against your best friend or not, every side needs to be heard.
All right, thank you. Now, working in government can often be contentious, as obviously we are students, but we do have a significant amount of power given to us under state law. How will you work with other people who you may not agree with to create a well-functioning government? And that will go with Kyle and Allie first, sorry.
So pretty much putting aside conflict to make sure students come first and pretty much make sure we have a beneficial campus. Just really putting aside those biases that everyone has. I know I have been through many trainings about becoming aware of those biases, and I think SGA as a whole all needs to do that. You can only prevent or attempt to prevent the biases that you're aware of, so just becoming familiar with what those are and could be. So that would definitely be something implemented in any transition period before any administration starts.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that conflict isn't always bad. I like to go into the situation thinking, okay, I might not agree with this person, but what they're saying can help me solve the problem at hand. And instead of facing it like a conflict where we're opponents, that coming from a place of trying to understand them and use their opinion to help solve the problem, I think is really important and the way I like to handle conflict.
I think the most important thing is to listen. I feel like a lot of conflict can be solved by just listening to what others have to say and hearing all different sides of the situation and all different perspectives.
And in my short-lived time in SGA, I have really noticed a lot of our areas of communication and things that are not being understood the best happen primarily in our open assembly meetings. And so the first step that I personally would want to take, because also part of the vice presidency is chairing those general assembly meetings, the first step I would want to take is redesigning that meeting to be a little bit more informative or holding an informative meeting at the beginning of semesters. I think if everyone can be on the same page and have that transparency within the student government, it's going to allow us to understand each other's roots a little bit more. And with that, we also want to make that very, very clear to the rest of the student body. And that would entail kind of also redesigning our informational pages with spin and making sure that everyone knows exactly what it is student government does, because they will have a more understanding and lenient attitude towards the power that we hold if they understand what it is exactly that we're doing and it's not something that we're trying to explain by word of mouth.
Perfect. How will you work to build on SGA's relationships with faculty, staff, and administration? And this one will start with Julianne Mason.
The current relationship that we have with the faculty and staff here is something that we are very, very fortunate to have. Being able to go to other UW schools and see the way that they work with their faculty and staff has made me super grateful for the relationships that we have. And I think it's important to remember that they want to hear what we have to say, whether that is in complete agreement with them or whether it's something that we might disagree on. We should not be afraid to disagree with them because that is why they want to listen to our voices. And I think being able to continue to do that and continue to just speak for the students truthfully and honestly will continue to build that relationship up.
Absolutely. And going just to echo what Julia said, we do have this incredible relationship with faculty. I am a firm believer that everything can always get better. And with that, I really want to get back to the basics of kind of assessing what our relationship is currently and understanding our relationship with each of the faculty members we work with to be able to realize where we may be coming up short in some of those conversations and not standing our ground, because that is the only way that we can continue to push ourselves and lift ourselves up to get to where I believe and Julia believes that UWSP's potential can be.
So in order to maintain these relationships and continue strengthening them, I think communication is always the most important thing, and making sure that they understand our reasons behind our decisions so that they're able to better understand why we're making them and then see where we're coming from. So I think communication and transparency are super important, as well as continuing to invite those faculty members to our meetings and just to keep them in the loop, as well as attend their meetings as well.
I'd also like to say that people only buy into said system when they're involved in the process. If you go to them when SGA has already decided on something and it might be unpopular, they're going to be way more strongly against it than if they were involved throughout the decision. So just what Allie said, keep that communication flowing and start when an idea starts rather than when a decision is made.
Perfect. What are your top priorities? That's going to be the question. What are your top priorities? Starting with Kyle and Allie.
I have probably hinted at the human first aspect for every single one of these answers, so I think it would be unfair if I did not say that was my first priority. As an RA in the suites, my fantastic hall director said that in every one-on-one we had. So Kayla molded a lot of my leadership abilities, more so than I think she realizes. So just those genuine conversations with the team of executives and senators and students, checking in on them as humans first, is my top priority. So I guess that ties into leadership and what I expect SGA to become for next year.
Yeah, so as Kyle mentioned, in order for SGA to serve the students to the best of our ability, we need to ensure that SGA as a whole and the members involved are doing okay themselves. So in addition to prioritizing the members of SGA, we also want to prioritize the relationship with students and ensuring that student voice is being heard in the decisions made in SGA, as well as diversity in the voices being heard in SGA. All those things are really important to us, and we hope to, whether we win this election or not, we hope to help facilitate those changes within SGA.
So for Mason and I, one of our top main priorities has been mental health. The pandemic has shown us where we are lacking in mental health resources, and we have lots of great resources on campus, many of which students are not aware of. And so we want to make students more aware of those resources that are available to them, and then also seeing what resources students could use and benefit from, and trying to implement those and bring those in for students to benefit.
Absolutely, and the next area is something that everyone discusses and everyone talks about, and is inclusivity. We really want to bring those diverse voices into SGA as a whole. And as I had previously mentioned, I have gone through forms of training on how to use correct terms and language when you're discussing certain heavy topics or controversial topics. And I also understand the kind of areas of that training that I can tweak and move forward and use with our General Assembly meetings, so then everyone has the opportunity to get that learning and get that kind of affirmation for their university organizations, because that's something we can make into UWSP and have it be something that gets turned into training the same way as treasurer training. So as a whole, our entire campus is an area that is more inclusive for everyone.
And the last thing we're looking, or one of our last top priorities, is looking to make SGA a more relatable and reliable source. We want SGA to be a safe space for students to come and express their concerns and their ideas openly and freely. And being able to just come to us with anything and not be afraid is something we're looking to do. SGA can be very intimidating, and we're hoping to just make it that space where students feel comfortable coming and talking to us.
Perfect. And then as a follow-up to that, how will you achieve these priorities, starting with Julianne Mason?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of mentioned it a little bit in the inclusivity. I tend to get very adamant and passionate about it, so I apologize for that, but it's perfect because it's a great segue. I do want to look more into inclusivity and diversity training within our student organizations. It has become something that is a bit of a touchy subject, and I personally feel that it shouldn't be. It is something that it should just be widely spread across our campus, and I genuinely feel that after conversations with student government associates, that we have found ways to make that something that is absolutely attainable. And that is kind of the first area. And we also did bring up previously the redesigning of our informational pages, because transparency is something that is going to help with our relatability, and it's also going to assist in our outreach and gaining those more people to join our Senate and join our executive board and things like that, to just create a stronger SGA as a whole. And as we previously mentioned, with mental health, we already have the resources, but it is really just making sure that students have the ability to also access those resources. Although that we say that we have all of these things, we need to realize that despite the limitations that our university may have when it comes to mental health care, we have resources to outreach to and explain them and give them to the students, and that is our job, to facilitate any resources to them through our association.
And I think with all three of those goals, it's very important to for us just to listen to students. We do not know everything, and being able to listen to what other people have to say allows us to make decisions for the students on their behalf.
I think listening to students is a great goal. However, I don't expect students to immediately want to come talk to us as SGA members. So to carry out those goals, Allie and I would establish monthly open forums, rant boxes, small group discussions, and special events. I think the key here is special events, because students are way more likely to attend Canvas and Cocoa type event to paint as they drink hot chocolate. With SGA members in attendance, I don't think expecting them to come to our office would be the first step to connecting with students. So offering that unprofessional event that SGA hosts and put on would allow us to better that relationship a lot quicker than just expect that it to magically change. Also, rant boxes, keying in on we're all college kids and we want that informal way of ranting rather than coming to the office. We would put mailboxes in front of the SGA office, in the DUC concourse, and in DeBow to get around campus, where students could anonymously insert a letter to rant about anything they have concerns about across campus. That would just give that informal setting once again to give us their concerns that we can attempt to remedy rather than be the politicians most of campus sees us as.
Yeah, so in terms of achieving our goals of inclusivity and diversity of voice on the Senate floor, I think it's important to reach out to those students and have those conversations in an effort to kind of rebrand SGA, or let it be known to the students that we are approachable and students just like them, and we want to help them, and we want to be able to hear their concerns and help them.
So that is your time. However, the next question is about inclusivity. So it's a good segue for both teams here. So how will your administration build a more inclusive campus? And I lost track. I believe we're with Kyle and Allie on this one first.
Yeah, so just to finish, go to those students, hold different events that promote inclusivity and diversity on campus. So then students will see that that is something that SGA prioritizes, and then hopefully they feel more welcomed and are more inclined to get involved with us.
So right now, the EDI committee that currently is in place has recently created a pronoun button maker program. I think that would be a fantastic way to start. That would tie in our special events goal along with improving the inclusivity on campus. Being able to express everyone's pronouns in the form of a button people could clip on their backpack, which a lot of college students already do. Not pronoun buttons, but just buttons in general. Would allow us to have that special event and increase the inclusivity. And to add on to what Allie said, go to the student orgs, expecting students to come to our quite long meetings every Thursday night is an unrealistic goal. I think we need to be the ones making that initiative to go to them rather than us asking them to come to us all the time.
Yeah, additionally, I think in this area, education is super important. Personally, I'm not the most diverse student on campus, so I think it's important to educate ourselves on where we're lacking that information so that we're able to understand where these students are coming from.
Like it was previously discussed, listening to learn is very important, and meeting students exactly where they are so we can help and figure out and educate ourselves.
When it comes to inclusivity and diversity, there is an area where you need to almost take a step back and only listen. And I think that that's something Julia and I really, really pride ourselves on. And as we move forward with that, the previously mentioned training is something that is incredible. And I do actually have the privilege of sitting on our EDI, which is Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity Committee within SGA. And that is probably, despite it being a longer meeting, it is something that is incredibly important because we do offer our agenda to be sent out in a forum where we can kind of work with issues that are directly affecting students. So there is never a day that goes by that I don't already kind of think about what is lacking on campus and what is most important. And we have our limitations and we also have our incredible strengths. However, I think UWSP would really benefit from one-on-one training and intentional conversations with certain individuals and organizations that pride themselves on this inclusivity and diversity. And it will take us time to get to that point. However, if we start that now as a collective and as our candidacy, we will be miles and miles ahead of where we are during the next session.
Perfect. So moving on to another big issue on campus, what will you do to move toward divestment from fossil fuels at the system level? Starting with Julia and Mason.
This is a topic that has come up a lot within Stevens Point, but also within the statewide governance that we have been talking about. And so I think listening and hearing what is said on our campus and then bringing that up to the level of the statewide to continue to fight for really what Stevens Point prides himself on.
Absolutely. We've had meetings where we have talked to Mayor Mike Wiesa, and he has explained to us the already incredible advancements that the community has made. And I believe that Stevens Point is part of that community in Stevens Point, and how we have taken those areas of creating more green space and things like that. And I feel that the biggest area where we can improve on is making sure that people know exactly what it is that divestment and the stopping of fossil fuels is and how it affects them as students and how it affects our future as a whole. Because if we are going to be spending the money that we are to go to school here, we should be priding ourselves on what area of life that we are going to be most affected in when it comes to divestment and it comes to climate.
Yeah, I think Allie and I are very much supporters of the question at hand. However, I think this would be a great opportunity to, again, empower other people. We have student organizations specifically for divestment and those issues. So looping them in to assist in those conversations and empower them to have the opportunities that a lot of SGA members have with those at the state level would be beneficial because we are here to represent and empower those students and giving them the opportunity to sit in on those conversations and drive the decision makings, I think would be most beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial, as Kyle mentioned, to reach out to those student orgs who do have a little bit more knowledge in this area and give them a platform, as well as educating students, because before I joined SGA, I didn't really know about divestment or how it affected me and our campus. And I think educating a lot of the students on what it is, how it affects us, and the role UWSP plays in it would be beneficial and bring more support to the cause. I think a lot of us pointers really care about the environment, especially as our campus has it as one of its main pillars.
Perfect. So we'll move on to another question from the audience. We've kind of been mixing them in as we go. So all the candidates are qualified for their respective offices. What types of legislation, other types of documents have you written or supported? Starting with Kyle and Allie.
So I've written legislation in regards to epinephrine and student health. So I written that piece of legislation. I've also written letters and some just educating students about COVID, as well as supporting a lot of different legislation that's been brought to the fore. Currently I'm working with another member of SGA to hopefully write a piece of legislation about mental health and the different resources we have on campus and improving those.
A lot of the legislation I've been involved in happens in the RHA setting. To name a few, we've passed legislation to start remodeling residence hall bathrooms to become gender inclusive and support all students. We're also currently working on improving the RA resident assistant stipend to cover that single room to allow the more genuine conversations between a student and their resident assistant without a roommate in the room or requiring those RAs to cover the additional cost. We're also giving money to residence halls to, I guess, give them the more unique approach to benefit their students rather than having us dictate what they need, because decisions should be made more at the direct level. And then I'm also currently working on renaming the suites right now, which is an inclusivity effort. However, no legislation has passed because we're still meeting about that.
So I have written a few letters. One that I just recently wrote was on the new health and wellness complex that we are looking to build on campus, which is super important pertaining to students and the funds that we've been collecting for years. And additionally, I have helped President Shader and Speaker Nygren on this statewide student governance. It's been a huge priority in President Shader's time in office, and being able to help him write some of the legislation and things for that has been a wonderful experience.
And just to piggyback off of Julia, I am one of the most avid supporters of statewide student governance, and that is something that I have really, really prided myself on. And my conversations with President Shader, as well as Director Botan, who is our Legislative Affairs Committee Director, and he handles a lot of that legislative process that I have had the privilege of learning about during my time in SGA. And with that, statewide student governance is something that I have not only supported, and very, very adamant on pushing it forward as we go into the next session, because I have seen what it can do for the community and what it has done for other schools in the area. And I've also had the privilege of lobbying and doing things with UW-Madison and doing things in Madison at the state capitol, and understanding that legislative process the best I can, so that when it does come to my time to push legislation and write letters, I have as much information as I can, and it can be something that is well-tuned and taken care of at the start.
Perfect. So the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, SGA, has a pretty good track record of being one of the leaders in the UW system for student government. With us heading into a biennium budget year for the state budget, what are some of your priorities for the state budget that you think the student government should be focused on under your administration? Starting with Julia and Mason.
So I had the opportunity last year to lobby, well, actually this year as well, and that was an incredible experience to see the things that each area and each university prioritizes. Personally, mental health is a huge factor to our university especially, and so being able to attain more funding for that, to either fund more resources like counselors and things like that, or other just resources that we could use. And then additionally, something that we discussed earlier was the tuition freeze had come to an end. And so not only being able to reinstate that, but also being able to fund the tuition freeze so that we are not running in any type of deficit.
Absolutely, and something that was brought up in an earlier question is divestment and kind of that sustainability area, and that's something that I personally would love to work on and fight for when it comes to any type of funding in the UW system as a whole. Not only does Stevens Point pride themselves on sustainability, but that is something that we do have the availability to continue to push and have a greener and more effectively used UW system as a whole.
And last year we had really fought for a new library and a new Albertson Hall, and I know that this year something we are definitely looking to do is make sure that we can get that new health and wellness complex on campus. So being able to kind of prioritize our own building projects as well.
So, as they mentioned, mental health is really important to me and something that I think our university should focus on. Although we do have a lot of resources for students regarding mental health, I think there's always room to improve and perhaps hire more staff so that the current staff isn't overloaded, is able to more effectively treat the students and their needs. Yeah, so for me, mental health is a big thing.
So the reason mental health appears on Allie and I's campaign posters is because I have family and friends that deal with mental health that impact their ability to succeed in the classroom. As little as taking a quiz would ruin their day, and that shouldn't be common for us as college students, much less as an average person. This past year, I was told that we should be cautious funding mental health because we want to keep the pressure on state legislators to cover it for us. However, I think Allie and I are adamant that mental health isn't something we should leverage in a waiting game for the state to assist with. It's something we should be proactive, and if we have the chance to fund it, we should most definitely take every opportunity we can. Waiting on the state to improve mental health and counseling services is not something I would support.
All right, perfect. And so for this last question here, I'm going to allow all the candidates to respond with 2 minutes, just because I do believe that it is very important. So the jobs that you're all seeking right now are not easy, they're stressful, they're time consuming. So the question is, why do you want the job? Starting with, we'll go with Kyle, then we'll move to Julia, then Mason, then Allie.
So an interesting fact is Allie and I are both pursuing a profession as a professor. We both have a genuine passion for student life in a university setting, and why would someone with that genuine passion want to stall their goal to help students for their career to start when there's an opportunity for next year to bring that leadership and the goals that I have identified to be able to help students now? Waiting 4 or 5 years until after graduate school isn't something that I necessarily want to do with this opportunity that arose. So I feel like I have the experiences in the past. I think many people have concerns that I am too involved. However, next year, SGA and academics would be my only priority. Making sure I'm there for all SGA executives and students themselves would be my utmost priority. And yeah, just being able to implement the things that I've heard from a lot of students. Allie and I have met with a lot of student orgs in the last 2 weeks, and their concerns are extremely valid, and being in the position as Student Government Association president would allow us to assist those student orgs and be able to fast track the goals that I have for the rest of my life.
Julia?
All right. So I have seen this job be very hard. I've seen a president go through it and things like that. And I think it's very important to remember why you're doing it. And I want to be the voice that the student body needs. I do not like when my voice is not heard and when there is a struggle to be understood, and I want to make sure that no student feels that way. It's very important to remember that we have power as student government, and it can be intimidating, and being able to show people who we really are and show them that we are just students, I think is super important. And I just want to just do everything we can for the students because they are the only reason that student government exists.
Perfect. Mason?
The role of vice presidency, to me, as I discussed earlier, is that area of checks and balances and understanding exactly who we're working with. For me personally, I have honestly never been someone who is very, very black and white. I have a lot of that gray area within my own personality and my own relationships because I believe that everyone deserves a chance to have their understanding heard, and that no one can be compared on just like scale of 1 to 2. I've also witnessed the current administration go through struggles that everyone goes through, whether it's politics or just who you're living with in your dorm room. And I have noticed that there are little things that I can bring to that position to just fine tune it, because I feel that above all, we pressure ourselves a lot more than we should. We do have a lot of power, as Julia mentioned. However, we also have the power to step back and delegate and work with each other rather than work against each other. As much passion and as much time and effort goes into SGA, there's always that time to step back and say, you can take care of this, I need to go and have a breather. We have discussed this with our current directors and noticed that building up SGA and understanding where we at to get to that better point of where we can be is something that we want to push for and we want to continue to have, so we can have better retention within our senators and on our executive board as well.
So for me, I want to hold this position because I want to ensure that all students feel at home on this campus and that they feel that their concerns are being heard and that their voice are being heard, and that they have people that they can go to if they're feeling uncomfortable on campus. I also think my experience on SGA has given me the ability to see the things that are working for SGA and the things that need improvement. And I truly believe that Kyle and myself are more than capable of facilitating that change. And it's something, whether this campaign goes the way we hope so or not, that I look forward to facilitating that change.
All right, perfect. So we will then move on to closing statements, and I'm going to work up my list here. So we're going to start with Allie, go to Mason, Kyle, and then end with Julia. So Allie, 1 minute then for your closing statement.
Sure. I just want to thank everybody that came or is watching for taking interest in this election. It is really important, so I just want to say thank you for that. And then just my biggest goal really is student voice and ensuring that the students feel that their concerns are being met. And that's something that's really important to me, and I hope to be able to do that for the campus.
And now that I've had the chance to really sit here and see you guys and talk to those who are watching from the comfort of their bed, where I wish I was right now, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys are an incredible student body and the people that I want to be able to represent, because without you guys, SGA would not be what it is, and UW-Stevens Point would definitely not be where it is. And I really pride myself on all that you guys are doing for us, and I can't wait to move forward into our next session and help you guys, help us make UWSP all that it can be and really rise up to our potential.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the packed house that came today. I appreciate all of you. I think Allie and I would be the best candidates for next year to implement the things that we have all identified throughout the course of this open forum. We are here to empower everyone and put human first back into student government.
I just want to say thank you to all of you, and thank you to Head Justice McNamara for facilitating this. It's important to remember that we would not exist without the students, and that we are here to fight for everyone. So it's a great day to be a pointer.
All right. Thank you to everyone who attended today and to all of those who are watching at home. Students, keep an eye on your inbox this Friday, March 11th, for your ballot. Voting will run from noon on March 11th until noon on March 17th. There are several important items on your ballot, so make sure that you're filling out your ballot completely and accurately. If you have any questions about voting or about elections, feel free to reach out to SGA or myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And if you have any questions that were not answered, or if you have any questions that were not answered today by the candidates, feel free to reach out to them as well. Once again, thank you all and have a great day.